頭集第75則作用人は天道大安の芸前寺浄土に曰く三千の人霧にも誤って用心することを豪妙検証もこれ作用人成仏さそうもこれ作用人監禁公共もこれ作用人幼獣座がもこれ作用人寄宿喫飯もこれ作用人足尊用もこれ作用人一道一乗一種一来もこれ作用人さらに一乗の作用人あり奇数あえて精進のために説馬せず何が言えず一時肛門にいれば旧夕日けどもいいです。Entangling Vines, Case 75. Misusing the Mind. Oan Dongye of Tendo took the high seat and said, practitioners of Zen must be careful to avoid misusing the mind. To attain enlightenment and see self-nature, this is misusing the mind. To attain Buddhahood and become a master, this is misusing the mind. To study the sutras and expound the teachings, this is misusing the mind. To walk, to stand, to sit, to lie down, this is misusing the mind. To eat gruel and eat rice, this is misusing the mind. To shit and to piss, this is misusing the mind. To move, to be still, to go, to come, this is misusing the mind. I won't explain it because once a word enters a government office, 9 oxen cannot pull it out. Hello! Welcome to our sit-in. We call it Seshhin. We call it a Japanese term, but I call it a great time. It's wonderful to have you all here together, to be with you, and to know that this world is not just full of self-centered, well, the word would be asshole, but I'm not supposed to say that probably. And to have people who feel drawn to being more open, more welcoming, more human. Yeah. And that is the kind of endeavor we are undertaking here. Well, it is dressed in garbs that have their origins in China a long time ago. We use Japanese terms because it was a Japanese tradition that brought it over here to us. But the most important thing, and the most important of the teachings that we find with the teachings of the Buddha is that it has always to be alive. Are you alive?
Yes.
No wonder you have to come here. There's only one answer to that, right? Right? Are you alive? Yes! We are alive. And how? Right? 56 years ago, this place was opened. Was a big deal. All kind of Japanese types, masters came. I think Misusing Roshi was here, and I'm sure that Joshu Roshi was here, but I haven't seen much pictorial evidence of it. I'm sure there are some photographs somewhere. It was different than nowadays. Nowadays you can't walk in anywhere or around any corner without being photographed. And it's the same here. Here is the offender. Yeah. And it has its utility. It does. I'm wondering about the newest addition to our Zen family here, Heidi, who will have pictures and videos from times before she was born. And being able to basically see that yourself might be quite astounding. At least for me, when I was born, nobody had a camera ready. Or would anyone have owned a camera to do something like that? But nowadays it's quite different. And it's important to also know that everything we can do takes away a little bit of our lives. Not only our lives, but everything takes a little bit of what we cultivate here. What is it? Number 3 at the meal?
Attention.
Attention. What is most important is, anyone remember?
The practice of attention.
The practice of attention. And why is it so important, especially today, now? Have you noticed?
So many distractions.
Distractions, we call it. Yeah. There's so much going on. And why is there so much going on? Because there can be a buck made with every piece of attention that we can get from everybody here. The attention economy. Have you ever thought about that? The attention economy. Yeah, this phone here is one of the main attention grabbers. Ooh. Click here, clickbait. Oh, let me watch this, let me watch that. Attention, you go out in the street, the big signs. People are asking for attention, the way they dress. And if that doesn't work, they ask for attention the way they act. Attention, attention, attention is being sucked away from you like at an industrial scale. Can you hear the big suck? And that, you know what that makes us all? Suckers. Yes, we are, and our mind is a mind of a sucker. That's how it is set up. That's how nature made us evolve. And within that, there are some who like to suck money from you and attention. So when we get together here, we notice that, well, with attention, as we heard, comes distraction. Distraction is when our attention is not able to naturally focus or be with what we are doing. What we are doing. And you know it from Zazen, that attention is a very, very rare commodity that now is more and more depleted. Okay, I will count my breath. Wow. What was that at lunch? I should have eaten more. Attention doesn't last long. It's always going around. So we have to work with attention. It's somewhat like an ox. Remember the teishos that Roshi gave on the ox herding pictures, the 10 ox herding pictures. And the ox can stand for many different things. But we have to tend to it, and like a good pet, we have to feed it. And sometimes we have to clean up after it too. If you spend attention in one place, there might be residue of all kinds of ways. So when we sit together, just by the fact that we have one human being sitting on our left and sitting on our right, that allows us to share in the energy that we all bring to this together. Gesundheit. And with that energy, we are able to let that what seems to be distraction not be a distraction anymore, but just be what it is. It's not that it goes away. If you sit here and you can shut out the sirens from the outside, and you might as well at the same time miss the rumbling from the subway that so gently makes us aware of our existence not just being limited to that physical body we represent here. So it's just the opposite. It's not an attention that is, in this case, so focused like the sunlight through a magnifying glass that it burns a hole into something. That is focused attention, which is very important to have and to develop. We learned it in school. Concentrate. And if you don't, you have ADHD. Is there anybody here who does not have ADHD? It is a different kind of attention, an attention that is all-inclusive, spherical, 360 degrees, going out into the cosmos beyond, and includes everything. And when we have that kind of intention and that kind of attention, there are no distractions. Things are just as they are. In Buddhism, we speak about that and call it tattva, suchness, shinyo, true nature, one true nature. But still, you must have had some kind of reason to come here and begin this practice. And if you say, well, I like to sit for a long time so that my legs really hurt and my back really screams, that's probably not why you came. But we all share that too. But maybe you have heard about the Zen school and what Zen means. And today this koan speaks about what we deal with here, the mind. Do you have a mind? Do you have a body? Is there a difference between your body and your mind? All of this is looked at here at the cushion. And you learn, we all learn that body and mind and all kind of distinction is just an idea. Once those ideas go away and the separation disappears, we experience and we live in non-duality. That's how we say it in a Western sense, in non-duality. There are various ways to know what non-duality is. One of them is if you get very sick and there's nothing but pain. There is no room for anything else. One of our practitioners at Charles River Zen in Boston, where I live most of the time, came to me last Wednesday evening and said, with a bright face, I experienced non-duality. So I said, wonderful, what happened? I was in the hospital. The pain was so big, so great, so all-consuming, that it took all self-referential consciousness away. Wonderful. Now, it doesn't have to be pain. It can be anything. It can be anything. But pain is one of the things that sometimes pulls us into this not having even a tenth of an inch for this I am self to reside. Gone. But maybe you come here, as it says in here, to attain enlightenment and see self-nature. Attain enlightenment. What would the Japanese word be for that? You've read it many times if you read any of the books in English.
Kensho.
Well, that's the second one. That's Satori, yes. Satori. And then seeing self-nature, Kensho. Are you being sold goods here too? That's something to aspire to. But here, Oan Donge says, to attain enlightenment and see self-nature is misusing the mind. Interesting, interesting. What kind of approach is that? This Zen school has weird approaches, doesn't it? Yeah? It pushes you away while it pulls you in. Very interesting. As usual, I would like to start to look at this Oan Donge, who was of Tendo, a little bit, and tell you a little bit about his life before we go further into the koan. So, Oan Donge, that's how it's pronounced in the Japanese. He lived from 1103 until 1163 and appears in 3 cases in this collection, Entangling Vines. All of this information comes from this kind of encyclopedia type of work that speaks about those Zen masters, the Keto Dentoroku. So what we know is he was a native of Hwangmei, which is in the present Hubei province. His surname was Zhang. At age 17, he became a monk at the temple that in Japanese is pronounced Tozenji. And he first studied with a Soto master by the name of Shunan Shosui. After studying with his first teacher, he went on to another teacher and he encountered Engo Kokugon. Engo Kokugon, who we know from chanting the lineage that we have, and also from the fact that he compiled something. Remember what he compiled? The Blue Cliff Record, yeah, the Hekigan no Doku. So Engo Kokugon. And Engo, I have too much to do. Go and see my student and my successor, Kukyo Joryo. Kukyo Joryo we also know because Engo Kokugon, and then in our chant, he appears next. So Kukyo Joryo, 1077 until 1136. He became Kukyo's Dharma heir and served as a priest in many different temples in China, and finally settling at the Mount Tendo. That's why he's also called Tendo Ohan. So he had a contemporary who we also have encountered many times in the koans by the name of Daye Soko, Dahui in the Chinese way. And both of them were very interesting because they looked at koans in different ways. In fact, you know, this first generation tried to destroy all the copies of the Blue Cliff record because they had their own systems and there was too much written down. Daye Soko was the one who talked about the word head, you know, the wato, just reducing the koans to very, very little, very, very, very little things. Very interesting. But Oan Dongge was quite interesting. He was very vigorous, like Daye Soko. Even though Daye Soko was 14 years older than Dongge, they both died in 1163. So Dongge is an interesting name. If you look at the characters, and I hope you had some time to look at the board upstairs where I posted it in the original, Dongge, it's some kind of a flower. Some kind of a flower. I mean, we know there are some flowers that bloom very, very rarely. There are these cacti in the, well, New Mexico, Mexico, and so on that are called the Queen of the Night, where there's a flower that only comes out once during the night and then nothing else comes. It is similar here. It is not that type of it's not a cactus, but it's a Buddhist idea of a flower, and Dongge is the word that was chosen for the Udumbara flower. And it's more a story about the flower than actually something that is really physically present. Udumbara in Sanskrit means literally auspicious flower from heaven. Are there any plants that have something really interesting with their flowers? Like that there are no flowers, but there is fruit? You know, you don't have flowers, you won't get any fruit because no bees, no little helpers can come and make the magic happen. I give you a hint. Third bowl. Third bowl. Third bowl. Did you eat today? Yeah, what was in the third bowl?
Figs.
Figs. Have you ever seen a fig tree bloom? Yes?
No, I saw figs.
You only see the figs.
The figs.
You only see the figs, yeah, but because this genus, the Ficus racamosa, they are inside. You can't see the flowers. But then come the fruit. It's wonderful. And because the flower is hidden in the fruit, this legend kind of developed and explains the absence and supposed rarity of this non-visual flower. So in Buddhism, this flower, the Dongge, was said to bloom every 3,000 years. So it's something really extremely, extremely rare. So it symbolizes this really rare occurrence. For example, appearance of a Dharma king or a teacher who turns the wheel, the turning of the wheel. Really, really important teachings. Or the appearance of a Buddha. Even in Japan, it's in the culture, in medieval Japan, possibly also in other places, this donge, the Udambara flower, was said to be capable of healing and pulling those who are dying from the disease. It is mentioned in the Heian period, in the Utsubo Monogatari, for example. We can also find it in other Buddhist scripture. We need the flower. We need the flower, all of us. So in this Pali work, the Sutta Nipata, which is part of the Tipitaka, there it says, Yo najigama bhavesu saram, vichinam pupamiva udam baresu, so bhiksu jahati oraparam, urago chinamaviva takam puranam. The person who does not find core or substance in any of the realms of being, like flowers which are vainly sought in fig trees that bear none. Such a person, such a bhikshu, bhikkhuni, gives up the here and the beyond, just as a serpent sheds its worn-out skin. We find it in the Lotus Sutra, the Myoho Renge Kyo, or Hokke Kyo as it's called also. In the chapter 2 and 27 it appears, the flower. There it says, all Buddhas come into the world, but rarely and are hard to meet. And when they appear in the world, it is hard for them to speak the Dharma. Throughout countless ages, too, it is difficult to hear the Dharma. Such people, too, are rare, like the Udambara flower, in which all take delight, which the gods and humans prize, for it blooms but once in a long, long time. So I want you to know what it says here. This is you. This is you. Those who can hear this Dharma. Such people too are rare, like this flower. There's also a Japanese word, the udonge. And you can find it in Dogen Zenji's writings, where he writes about the Udambara flower in chapter 68 of the Treasury of the Eye of the True Dharma, the Shobo Genzo, where he puts this flower in the context of the flower. Is there a famous flower somewhere in any of the koans, in any of the stories that have anything to do with Zen? Buddha raises the flower. Does it say which kind of flower it is? No. I heard somebody said lotus, yeah. But we don't know. So what Dogen writes about here is that he puts the udonge flower in the context of the flower sermon given on that Vulture Peak. And that is the flower you couldn't see that Buddha raised. It is the flower of this mind-to-mind transmission between human being and human being. In this case, Shakyamuni Buddha and Mahakashyapa. So that's the name of the monk. And fortunately, it folds very well into what he said about Zen practitioners, what Sanzensha, what practitioners of Zen must be careful to avoid. Misusing the mind. To attain enlightenment and see self-nature, this is misusing the mind. To attain Buddhahood and become a master, this is misusing the mind. To study the sutras and expound the teachings, this is misusing the mind. To walk, to stand, to sit, to lie down, this is misusing the mind. To eat gruel and eat rice, this is misusing the mind. Dear Ohan Dongye, is there anything we can do that is not misusing the mind? Do you think there's anything we can do that he wouldn't say is not misusing the mind? What about the next one? To shit and to piss. This is misusing the mind. Anyone able to go without that for an extended time? No. No. You could try. You could really try and get severely impacted. Maybe that will lead to the pain of non-duality. Don't try it. But holding your water. It's interesting because Joshu Roshi always talked about that. When he was in the monastery, which of course was in the years before the 40s of the last century. He entered the temple in 1921. And he became a Roshi at age 40 in 1947. The monks were sitting, and if you hadn't gone to the bathroom, and the sits were long and long and long, you were just suffering. You had to learn how to let it out drop by drop, or not at all. It's awful. However, this is the direction this points us here. To shit and to piss, this is misusing the mind. To move, to be still, to go, to come, this is misusing the mind. I won't explain it. I won't explain it. Because here comes the key to all of it. Once a word enters a government office, 9 oxen cannot pull it out. Once you dial 911 and you hang up, the cops will come. They will come and check. Once you put the complaint in a written form to the government, not a single word can be changed. Once you use a word, from the point of view of Zen practice, the mind is misused. So, after sitting there, and finally the teisho is over, and you are the head in the bathroom line, you will experience what it means not misusing the mind. You go into your stall and you go. Nothing needs to be said. No word needs to be attached. Nothing has to be thought about. Move it on, there are other people here. Of course it doesn't last. There is always somebody waiting in line behind you. And that pulls us back into that world where we have to use our mind, even if it is used as misusing in the context of being. We live in a world that is imperfect. We have to speak. But the speaking will never be able to replace the actual seeing of self-nature, the actual attainment of the understanding what Buddhahood is, and being somebody who hears the Dharma. If we just talk about it, it's misusing the mind. Walking, sitting, lying down and standing with an idea of achieving anything is misusing the mind. But writing a nice letter of thank you and gratitude to somebody who was kind to you is using words in a very different way. The world of the wordless, of the pre-verbal, of the absence of the need to attach any thought or concept to it, can always and always does coexist with the world we speak. Now we just have to learn when we speak not to come too far away from really knowing what the underlying thing is. It's not a good idea to go somewhere into a meeting and say, you don't mind if I piss here, right? No. It feels so good, but it doesn't really contribute to the meeting. So we have to be careful. Now I wanted to say something about the practice we do here too. You know about hand postures, you know? There are various hand postures that we follow when we are here in the formal Zen practice, right? One of them is this one. We call it Gasho. Gasho. Gasho is an embodiment of bringing something that is apart together. I was also taught by somebody, Joshu Roshi's hands actually, he was very old already, so he really couldn't close his pinkies anymore, you know, so it looked like this, and then his young monks began to imitate him. Oh, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. And so he said, no, it's arthritis. The idea is the 10 silas. We put them all together, and if we can. It didn't, maybe it meant that he's only keeping 8. We could argue that too, yeah? But we make an effort to really fully bring it together. And when it is fully together, that's the moment where there's no need to speak. There's nothing to be said, it's just, and of course, then it breaks apart again. Gasho. What is the next most common kind of hand posture that we have? What is that called?
Shush.
Some people say sashu, some people say sasho, some people say shashu, and it's all right. Yeah? In that posture, that's a formal posture. Which hand is on the top? The left. Why? Why the left hand?
Because the right hand has to be closer to the heart.
You're misusing the mind. It's arbitrary, ultimately, but how I was taught is that one side represents expansion, which is, in this case, the right, but it might as well be the left. But the right is expansion, and the left is contraction. So anything that we do in this practice that takes our self-referential consciousness away often has to do with the left side. When we walk kinhin, which foot goes first? Left. Forward, always left. Zazen, the mudra, the left hand rests on the right hand so as to be, in this case, steering it into the direction of letting the self go. Same in Shashu, the left hand. Even though we are moving, in that movement, because it's often a posture either when we are standing or when we are moving in kinhin. Even though we are moving, it is not self-referential. Now, is there another hand position that you can think of? Oh yeah, what about the Tato bow? What about the Tato bow? You know, what is that? Gasho roadkill. Your gasho is flattened out on the floor. Yeah, sometimes really it's flattened out that people go like, splashed all over.
I've seen that symbol in some Jewish temples, on
Yeah.
the doors.
Yeah. So it's that opening and of the gasho. What about, well, you can't see my hands, but you can imagine how that is. Is there a term for that?
Yeah, cool.
What? Cool.
Cool, yeah. Saturday Night Live.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. What's the? Is there a Japanese cool?
No, it comes from Brooklyn.
Cool. Cool. No. There's a term that's called suishu. Suishu. Suishu, which means relaxed hands.
You tell them the fawns.
Suishu, yeah. So while we are in formal training, even if we walk around in the hallway, we have some kind of formal posture with it. Either gasho or shashu, or in meditation, one of the cosmic mudras, or the modified cosmic mudras. But suishu literally means dangling hands. It's neither of those 3 or 4 ritual kind of ways. You relax your hands and you let them hang naturally. So in the Zen context, this phrase and this term has been used to signify the putting aside of all formality. Not only all formality, but also all ritual. And thus it has also gained the meaning of suishu, that one extends one's hands in relaxation to invite and be compassionate. I'm gonna save you. Line up, you're one of the people I will save. How are you doing? You feeling okay today? Very important aspect of this practice. I happen to mention the 10 ox herding pictures, yeah? You know the 10th one. The 10th one, the last one. Anyone remember? It has they're all pretty round, yeah. Yeah. Where do you get to be? You return to the marketplace, right? You return to the marketplace. Now this picture in Japanese is called Nitten Suishu, yeah, or Newton Suishu. Entering the marketplace with relaxed hands, ready to live in this world, ready to come back from the mountain, to come back from Seshhin, to come back from Seichu, from Kesei, from training, and to extend the compassion and the openness that has naturally grown the position of natural compassion. Why do I tell you about that? Because I don't want you to take this koan so seriously, as I want you to take this practice utterly serious, but also utterly joyful. The formality is only there to teach us and to help us, allowing ourselves to also become completely informal and relaxed. So when we sit here straight, it builds up the strength we need. The strength we need to have attention, to have compassion. When we return into this economy of attention grabbing, life that pulls everywhere, there's no more upright sitting there. We need the strength. But what we can bring then is Suishu, the grace of letting all of this spill all over. Kindness, acceptance. Yeah. Everybody, even the most, from our point of view, deluded folks, they are still human beings. They are just like you and me. Let's not use their delusion as a way of misusing our mind. Let's not use the delusion and the limitations of other human beings who are afflicted by them as straitjackets or limitations. That is misusing the mind. And even if we call it misusing the mind, maybe mind should be translated here, because it's the character Shin, it's the character Kokoro. It's so much more than the mind. Don't misuse your heart mind. Let's get strong together so we can let it all hang out. That is how bodhisattvas go into the world. Unknown, unrecognized, but completely cherished by everyone who meets them. No words necessary to be that way. "56 years, this room has given shelter, recently with air conditioning, to many generations of practitioners, of human beings who came and went. And as Buddhism lives, it lives in each person in this room here. And as such, it's incumbent on us to continue this living heart of what it means to be a human being, to go forward. And the only way to go forward with this is to give it all away. Joyfully, relaxed, and most of all, together.